I'm reviewing today The Lost Princess of Oz from the Complete Stories of Oz collection. So, The Lost Princess of Oz is from here to here. It's in this collection, it's just over 100 pages. Um, but I believe it's about 200 pages when it's normally printed with the pictures and everything. So this was originally published in 1917. It's book number 11 in the canonical Oz series by L. Frank Baum. I'm reading it out of the Complete Stories of Oz, and it's book number 12 in this book because this collection includes one non-canonical book that L. Frank Baum had written earlier, the Little Wizard Stories of Oz, I believe it was. Anyways, quick background information. I'm doing this as a buddy reads with Dane Reads. At the time I'm filming this, he hasn't posted his video. But when he has posted his video, I will update the description down below whenever that ends up being. I will link to his written review. He wrote a little capsule review of it on his website. I'm also, as always with this series, relying on the analysis of Marie Ness, who about 10 years ago wrote a series of reviews about this whole series for the website Tor.com. I always find her reviews really interesting, insightful, so we'll link to that down below, and various Wikipedia research. Okay, so let's go through this. This book starts off with, first of all, it has the To My Readers section, in which L. Frank Baum addresses his readers. The Oz books always have this. And he talks about all the ideas he gets from his readers, which he frequently does. And he says, I must admit that the main idea in The Lost Princess of Oz was suggested to me by a sweet little girl of 11, who called to see me and to talk about the land of Oz. She said, I suppose if Ozma ever get lost or stolen, everybody in Oz would be dreadful sorry. And he's got the apostrophes there to indicate the missing syllables, as L. Frank Baum frequently does when children speak in his books. Dorothy's dialogue is written the same way. Anyways, he said, that was all, but quite enough foundation to build this present story on. If you happen to like the story, give credit to my little friend's clever hint. So that's the premise, which he establishes in the To My Readers forward. And then the book wastes no time with getting that premise rolling. So right from the first few lines. There could be no doubt of the fact. Princess Ozma, the lovely girl ruler of the fairyland of Oz, was lost. She had completely disappeared. Not one of her subjects, not even her closest friends, knew what had become of her. So that's the first three lines right there. So we are wasting no time in jumping right into this premise where Ozma is missing. Now, it turns out not only is Ozma missing, but Glinda the Good Witch, who also has magical powers, finds that her magic book, which tells everything that's happening in Oz, is also missing. And all her magical instruments are missing, as well as the magical instruments of the Wizard of Oz, also known as the Little Wizard of Oz, who at this point in the series has become Glinda the Good Witch's understudy, as well as Ozma's magic picture is missing. So it appears all of the magical elements in Oz are missing, which really should be the start of every Oz book, because those magical elements tend to spoil every story. I mean, there really can be no suspense or no stakes if Ozma can always see what's happening in her magic picture, and Glinda the Good Witch can always see what's happening in her magic books. And Glinda the Good Witch seems to have what's portrayed as omnipotent magical powers, usually in these books. So with those kind of godlike creatures, how do we ever get a plot ever? Well, the way we usually get a plot in these storylines is at the very end, it turns out Ozma and Glinda were watching everything, but just didn't decide to do anything, or something silly like that. But now the magic elements are gone, and we can finally have a plot. And the plot is how to find Ozma. So early on, the characters of Oz are divided up into different search parties, which go in different directions. So there's some brief mention of some of the other characters, like Jack Pumpkinhead or the Shaggy Man and the Shaggy Man's brother, and some of the other characters that have been established from different books. They're sent out in different directions, and we never hear about them again for the rest of the book because the narration, the camera focus, so to speak, is following Dorothy and her group. And it's quite a group. It's Dorothy and Betsy Bobbins and Trot, so the three little girls of Oz, who, as Marie Ness has commented in her reviews, seem a little bit interchangeable at times. Betsy Bobbin was only created because L. Frank Baum didn't have the rights to Dorothy for one of his stage plays. So essentially almost a Dorothy clone. So those three are going. Plus Hank the Mule, Betsy Bobbin's mule, plus the Patchwork Girl of Oz, and the Woozy, her companion, and then Toto sneaks along later, and the Cowardly Lion, and the Sawhorse, and also the Wizard of Oz is going with them, and Toto sneaks along and joins them as well, and I think that's the group. So it's quite a group, and as Marie Ness says in her review, L. Frank Baum has a little bit of trouble balancing it all and giving them equal screen time, so to speak, equal time in the narration, which leads to some unnecessary dialogue which slows down the plot. Marie Ness says this will be an increasing problem in the last few books L. Frank Baum wrote before he died. I haven't read those yet, so I guess I'll have to wait and see. And speaking of dialogue, Toto is now talking in this book. So this has been something that's been an ongoing issue, maybe. It's been established from, I think, the third book onwards, that anytime an ordinary animal gets into Oz, they're able to talk. Now, this is one of the many continuity errors in the book because Toto the dog has never talked. He's always just barked. So a couple books back, we established that Toto actually could talk when he wanted to. He just didn't want to talk, and that was a way of resolving that continuity error. But now, for whatever reason, L. Frank Baum has decided that he wants Toto to talk in this book. So Toto is talking just as much as the other characters, arguing with the Cowardly Lion and the Mule about which creature is the most handsome, complaining that he has lost his growl. This is a rather odd subplot that gets introduced during the middle of the book, is Toto can't growl anymore, and he's convinced that whoever has stolen Ozma has stolen his growl. Slightly humorous. It never really goes anywhere. It gets a very unsatisfactory resolution, but that's that's Toto's story arc, is he's trying to find his growl, and he can't growl at anyone. So anyways, that's the group. Now they are going. The plot is not great. They're basically going in a direction and hoping that they're going to find Ozma. I guess to be fair, there are different search parties going out in different directions. Was briefly established in the beginning of this book. So it seems a little bit silly that they're just walking around aimlessly and hoping that they're going to find Ozma. But okay, there are other search parties going out in different directions. They adopt the philosophy as they go along that whenever they encounter something dangerous or forbidden or difficult to get through, they should actually go towards the danger because the more probability that's where Ozma is going to be. So Ozma is not going to be trapped in a safe area of Oz. Ozma would be trapped in an unsafe area of Oz. So Ozma is not going to be captured by the nice creatures of Oz. She would be captured by the evil creatures of Oz. Speaking of continuity errors, this is one that bounces back and forth between the series, is whether Oz is a pacified country or whether it's not. It depends on which book you're reading. So obviously in the first book, Oz was a land full of dangerous creatures. That has since been revised in subsequent books where Oz is this utopia where everybody's happy and everybody lives peacefully. But then you can't really make stories out of that. So in subsequent books, it's established that there are lots of hidden kingdoms in Oz or hidden civilizations. So there's these people who live on a mountaintop who are cut off from the rest of Oz because you have to climb all the way up the mountain, or there are these people in this valley, and these things have popped up in Oz books before. We get, I think, more of them than usual this book, and it's a bit silly because wherever they go, they say Ozma is the ruler of all of Oz, but it's clear that she's not the ruler of all of Oz because there are all these different places where they've never even heard of Ozma and have their own local rulers. Although maybe I shouldn't criticize that as a continuity error because maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the satire in this book. Marie Ness, in her review, which again I'll link to down below, says that there's an ongoing theme throughout this, which is that rulers are dishonest and seek to maintain their rule by creating illusions or lies. I guess one of the examples she points to is they go to the land of the thistles, I think. The land where they eat the thistles, I forget what it's named. And everybody claims that they're equal in this land. But they do have one judge who resolves any disputes that they have. They just go to the judge and ask him what the law is. And so Dorothy and her friends meet with the judge, and I think it's Dorothy. A lot of characters in this traveling party, but I think it's Dorothy who says to him, "Well, aren't you really the king then, in all but name?" And he says, "Shh, don't tell anyone." He's like, they all think that they're living equally and that I'm just helping them with the laws, but in actuality, I just make up the laws to suit me. So in fact, I am the king, but don't tell them that. They think they're all free and equal. That's the most egregious example, but Marie Ness makes the point in her review that this is a theme throughout the book to greater or lesser degrees. It's something I actually didn't pick up on, this theme throughout the book when I was reading it myself, but she has a good point. She might be right. Okay, so they are traveling along, and as they travel, they encounter strange things, new kingdoms that they've never heard of, new civilizations and people up in the mountains or kind of behind big walls that nobody has ever encountered before, and they all are strange in their own unique way. which is to say, it's a typical Oz book because that's how these books work. They're almost always journey stories in which the characters travel along and encounter strange things. What makes this book kind of unique is that the characters journeying are all established characters that we've seen before. The little wizard. Oh, Button Bright. I forgot about Button Bright. I knew I was forgetting somebody. But Button Bright is also part of their group. So Dorothy, Trot, Betsy Bobbins, Hank the Mule, the Cowardly Lion, the Sawhorse, the Patchwork Girl, the Little Wizard, who did I already say? There's this big group that's traveling, but it's all established characters. So ordinarily, what L. Frank Baum will do is he will have a bunch of new characters on the journey, or he will have maybe one familiar character like Dorothy, who gets joined by a bunch of new traveling companions. But here is all established characters. And it is kind of nice to see them on this journey. Some of them have not been in this group before. So, for example, I don't think we've ever had the Patchwork Girl and the Cowardly Lion on the same quest before. So there's a bit of unique mixing and matching. And that's interesting to see the new interactions between characters. And L. Frank Baum tries to take decent advantage of this group by having them talk to each other a lot. So it's not like, oh, by the way, and the Cowardly Lion was also there. The Cowardly Lion gets his fair share of dialogue, as does the rest of the crew. There is some stuff you could cut out here, and it doesn't affect the plot at all, particularly the animals in the group, the lion and the donkey and Toto and the woozy talking to each other before they go to sleep or something like that. Although Marie Ness, again, relying on her analysis, she makes the point that this is some of the dialogue among the animals, which seems like filler and seems like it doesn't advance the plot, is actually relating back to the theme of of deception and how appearances can be deceiving. For example, the animals talk about which one of them is the most handsome, and that they all have different perspectives on what a good animal should look like because they're all different species. And this, I guess, the idea of perception relates to the idea of illusion, which comes into the idea of deception. She explains it much better in her review. Go check it out, her review. But that's the argument she's making. Okay, so I said it was all established characters, but actually I lied a little bit. There's a B plot that's going on, and the B plot is where we get the new characters. For whatever reason, L. Frank Baum has to introduce a bunch of new characters in each book. I'm not sure. In a previous review, I said, it was like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I'm probably dating myself with that reference, but they always had to establish new characters in every episode because they had to sell new toys. L. Frank Baum seems like he's under the same obligation, but he's not selling any toys, so I don't know. But for whatever reason, he has to introduce new characters in every book. So in this book, we've got a B plot, which starts out with Cake the Cookie Cook, who is in the land of the Yips. In one of my reading vlogs, I'll link to it down below, I said I think the name of Yip was being reused, but that was just me talking out of my hat. The dangers of going unscripted. I've since researched this on the Oz wiki, and Yip was a name not previously used in this series. The land of the Yips And in this yips, there's the Frogman, which is a frog who has grown to human size and now dresses like a human. So an anthropomorphic frog. I've got a weak point for anthropomorphic frogs. I don't know why. I think it just reminds me of childhood stories, like the old song "Froggy Went a Courting" or "The Wind in the Willows." If there's like a human-sized frog who wears clothes, it just makes me feel like this is going to be a charming fantasy story. So here we go. We've got the Frogman and Cake the Cookie Cook, and Cake's cookie tray, her dish pan, has been stolen. So they are going to find the stolen dish pan. And along the way, they meet new friends, which is how these Oz journeys work. They go into... by the way, spoilers. I should have said that at the beginning of this review. Spoilers. They go along and they meet the teddy bear country, which is another one of these secret kingdoms in the land of Oz that doesn't know about Ozma, where the king of the teddy bears, called the Lavender Bear, because he's the only one who looks lavender. They're never called teddy bears. They're called bears. But based on the descriptions and the illustrations, there's no illustrations in this volume, but you can find it at Project Gutenberg. It's obvious that they're teddy bears. So the king of the teddy bears goes with them, and also the king of the teddy bears has a magic bear which is able to tell you anything. So yeah, L. Frank Baum just can't get away with this. So just can't get away from this. So the beginning of the story. We got rid of Glinda's magic book. We got rid of Ozma's magic picture. And I thought, okay, finally, we're actually going to have a story where there's no omniscient magic thing that can tell what's happening at any given time. And then halfway through the story, L. Frank Baum introduces the pink bear. And the thing is, if you wind up the pink bear, he can tell you any question you want to ask. He can't predict the future, but if you ask him where is Ozma, he'll be able to tell you where Ozma is, and he seems to know everything except the future. Except the other thing L. Frank Baum can't help but doing is he can't help but breaking his own rules. So it's clearly established that this bear cannot answer any questions about the future. But then, later in the book, when the two groups are meeting up, the Lavender Bear asks the Pink Bear, he says, are we safe going with these new companions? And the Pink Bear says, yeah, you and I are safe enough. Now, I looked at this sentence closely, and L. Frank Baum was not using the future tense, so there's no will or going to. But, as you know, if you're an English teacher, the present tense can also convey future meaning in English. And I think this is a classic example. And, I mean, what is that if not a prediction? Saying we are safe, meaning we are going to be safe throughout our adventures. And speaking of contradictions, this book is full of them. So I've been complaining about this in every Oz review I do, and by and large, I've learned to just accept it. That L. Frank Baum has a very fluid approach to continuity. So some stuff that's clearly established in one book will be changed in the next book. And I've learned to more or less accept that. What I'm still gets me a little bit is when the continuity is not even consistent throughout the same book. And that, I think, is more fair grounds for criticism. Although, again, L. Frank Baum does that in pretty much any book, every book. So to a certain extent, it's a losing battle criticizing that as well. But the the whole thing about whether or not anybody can die in Oz, it's famously inconsistent between books, but it's inconsistent here even within the book. So characters mention more than once, well, this is Oz and nobody can die in Oz. But it's also hinted that animals do die in Oz. At one point, the Cowardly Lion goes out to get some food, and Dorothy thinks to herself, okay, I hope all the animals are safe, heavily implying that the Cowardly Lion may have eaten some animals where he was going out. At another point, they meet a man who's being punished for having been cruel to some animals, and included in this cruelty is taking a fish out of water and leaving the fish on land until the fish suffocates because the fish can't breathe on land. As well as throughout the book, characters are in peril where they seem to be worried about dying. And then, the whole magic system. So, okay. So, Ozma is set up in this book as being some sort of fairy with magical powers, which I don't think has been true in the previous books. It certainly wasn't true in the first book where we met Ozma, book number 2. I was looking this up. I think Marie Ness in her review said it was hinted in previous books that she was a fairy with magical powers, but we never actually saw those magical powers. In some of the books, Ozma had a magic belt, and then that magic belt got forgotten about in later books. But now Ozma has magical powers. Apparently, somebody, I forget if this was Marie Ness or somebody commenting on her review, apparently Ozma's magical powers as a fairy princess are going to be more pronounced in the last 3 books L. Frank Baum wrote before his death. So I guess I'll be getting to those next. Also, Dorothy now has the magic belt. But for whatever reason, Dorothy forgets she has the magic belt or doesn't use it until the very end. Actually, even that's not completely true, because at the very end, Dorothy admits that she's been experimenting with the powers of the magical belt, like to bring her sweets when we're on this journey. But for whatever reason, she never uses it until the end. But then we've got this magic belt, which L. Frank Baum just can't help himself by bringing in these magical elements that just magically resolve the story out of nowhere. Anyways, we've got these 2 different groups going. So there's an A plot to find Ozma and a B plot to find the magic cookie pan. The stakes are not equal, but the framing is that the quests are equally important, or seems to be to me. And for a while, you're thinking to yourself, interesting. I wonder where this is going. Is there going to be some sort of twist where we find out that there's no twist. It turns out that there's an evil sorcerer, spoilers, evil sorcerer who's been just collecting all the magic elements of Oz, and it turns out that these 2 groups just bump into each other near the end of the book, form one big group, go to confront the sorcerer. Dorothy then all of a sudden remembers that she has this magic belt on and concludes the story. I'm probably sounding a little bit cynical at this point in the review, like I'm complaining about how the plot. But as always with these Oz books, the plot is, you can complain about the plot all day long. Predictable. There isn't really a plot. It's just a journey story until they get to the end. And filled with continuity errors both between the books in the series and even within the book in the series. completely typical of these Oz books. But what you get out of these Oz books, if you're getting anything out of them, is just the images and the imagination. Now I'm reading a book without any pictures. Usually they come fully illustrated, but this is all the stories in one volume. But they go to these different magical lands. There's descriptions of the strange creatures. They're the thistle eaters who live off of thistles and whose insides are lined with gold. And then there's the Herks, who are these incredibly thin creatures, but they have this magical potion which makes them really strong, and they have the giants as their servants because they're so strong that they can throw the giants around if they don't like what the giants are doing. There's the teddy bear kingdom, which reminded me a little bit of the Ewoks, although obviously I can't accuse L. Frank Baum of ripping off the Ewoks. There's the anthropomorphic frog who's walking around in people's clothing. And then once these two groups meet up and they're journeying together, there's just this image of this big group with all these bizarre creatures, a giant frog, a cowardly lion, the Hank the mule, the teddy bear, that just, and then all the characters are together in the final scene when they confront the wizard and he puts them in a dungeon, and then and they try and climb on top of each other. And so you're just picturing all these funny characters working together to try and get out. So to a certain extent, the visuals, again, no pictures in this edition, but your mental pictures that you imagine, and some of the imaginative things are enough to redeem the book, kind of. Is either that or you'd have to just say you're done with this series. And I don't know, maybe you do just say you're done with this series at a certain point. I think Steve Donahue on one of his Q&As was asked about L. Frank Baum's The Land of Oz series. He says, "Oh, it's terrible. It's just terrible." And the more I get into this series, the more I think I know what he means by that, because boy, oh boy, there is so much you could criticize here if you wanted to, but yeah. It's interesting enough. I'm going to stick with this series as long as I can. I've got 3 more books in this volume, and then I think some of the following books that were written after L. Frank Baum's death are on Project Gutenberg. Not all of them. I've been checking, but I might try and continue on. Dane and I have been talking about continuing on with the series. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Dane in one of his recent videos, one of his reading vlogs, was talking about, which book was he talking about? Rinky Tink and Oz. And he says, yeah, it was all right. I really didn't think it needed to be an Oz story. I don't know how Joel manages to get 30-minute reviews out of these Oz stories. Whenever I turn on the camera, I think, okay, there's not that much to talk about. This will be a quick one. This will be like a 5-minute review. And then I find myself rambling for 30 minutes. I don't know quite how I do it. One of these days I'm going to have to learn how to be more succinct. But for now, here we are.